I am so sick and tired of seeing these commercials and these news outlets fucking continue to use the word democracy.
Damn, Roid Rage Randy has gone from being pissed off at pronouns to mad at all nouns, apparently. Do we need to get out the little doll so you can show us where the vocabulary violated you?
We are not a fucking democracy.
Yeah, we are.
We are a fucking constitutional republic. There's a clear fucking difference.
No, there's not.
How fucking hard is it? Fuck!
For most of us, walking in on Grandpa and Grandpa. For you, fistful of little blue pills, apparently. But don't worry, I'm here to help. First, I want to point out that we're all aware that the underlying reason that you are so upset is that despite all of the anabolics, your angry acting ability is just so awful that your audition for Expendables 27 never got you a call back. And we can all empathize that must have really hurt your feelings, and now you got that little incy-wincy tiny problem of being an unemployed actor. But spewing utter bullshit about governmental systems you don't understand isn't the way to cope with that, man. A democracy, which you can look up the definition and read it for yourself. I don't want to make assumptions. Basically, the overlying concept is you just get to vote on shit. That's all democracy is. It's a pretty vague concept. An umbrella term, if you will. It's just a catch-all for anything where if you're involved in it and you get some say via a vote of how that thing is run, even if it's just a little bit, that's a democracy. The opposite of which would be an autocracy, where you might be involved in something, but you don't get a say, because one person gets all the say, and that person's not you. And while this is most often applied to governments, it can be applied to all sorts of things. Like capitalism, for example. You seem like you think you'd be a big fan of capitalism. We'll just ignore the Baby Gap Grunt-style t-shirt and the Angry Vet screen name that lets me know that you are most likely one of society's proudest recipients of socialism. We'll just leave the okay for me, not for the hypocrisy conversation for another day. I have a feeling we need to stick to pretty simple concepts here. But like capitalism, right? You've got publicly traded companies and privately owned companies. Publicly traded companies are a democracy, right? A shitty one, but a democracy nonetheless. For every share of stock you buy that makes you part of that company, you get a vote on who runs that company and how it's ran. That's a type of democracy, as opposed to a privately owned company that you can't buy stock in. One dude or a board of people who own that company get to make all of the decisions for that company, and that would be an autocracy. But that's just one type of democracy. Now, there's another type of company called a co-op. And this is where either all of the employees or all of the customers cooperatively own that company. Like, I'm a member of a co-op. My utility company is customer owned, and we cooperatively own the company as customers. As a result, in theory, I get equal vote to everybody else on how that company is run and who is elected to actually run the company. And that is a different form of democracy from a publicly traded company's democracy. So now that you understand that companies can be a democracy and there's different types of democracies within them, you should be able to understand that countries can be democracies and have different types of democracies within them as well. And this is really going to blow your mind because there's lots of different types of democracies. But those types of democracies fall under two main categories: direct democracy and representative democracy. Now, a peer democracy or a direct democracy, which is what I'm assuming is confusing that sweet, simple, senseless cavity below that really weird, poorly color choice Donald Trump Punisher cap, thinks is all democracy. It's just one form of democracy where everybody votes on everything. And by everybody, I mean everybody who is voting class within that society. So there was like the original Athenian direct democracy, but only male citizens were allowed to vote on stuff, but they just voted on how the country was ran. There was no specific representatives. And, there's popular direct democracy where everybody just votes on how the country is ran through referendums. And there's industrial direct democracy, which is, a co-op. And then we've got representative democracies. The representative democracies can take all sorts of fun forms, like a demarchy. And that's where they just pick out random citizens from the population, like, hey, you're gonna do Congress for a while. So they get to vote on the stuff, but they weren't elected. And now for this next one, you're gonna have to bear with me and just stick it out, because I know that, abstract concepts and the fact that nuance and everything existing on a scale is probably tough for you to follow, but you can even have an authoritarian democracy. Sounds like an oxymoron, right? But it's not, because you see, the people vote on the person to lead them, their representative, but then that person has supreme authority in how the country is run. In a way, it's sort of like what Putin's got going on in Russia, except, it's kind of like whose line. The votes are made up and the results don't matter. And then there's illiberal democracy, which is a representative democracy, kind of like we have without a rule of law. So you can elect your representatives, but there's no hard and fast rules that limit their power. And then this next one, I know you're gonna love it, because it's the type of democracy that we are. It's what you would call a presidential, and wait for it, liberal democracy. Yeah, I can see that irrational anger boiling out of your ears that would have gotten you that call back from the Expendables audition, because I know that despite not knowing what they mean, the words liberal and democracy give you all of the angry emoji feels. This is where your therapist would, if you utilized the VA for one, start working you through this with some breathing exercises. But I stopped pursuing a career in psychiatry before we ever got started, because I didn't want to deal with people like you. So moving on. All a presidential liberal democracy is a system where you have an executive branch, a president, and a parliamentary or congressional branch, our legislative branch, and a judiciary or legal branch, which is the one important difference, and we'll get to that in a second. Now, it's a representative democracy because we get to pick all of those people who represent us via voting. But unlike all of those other forms of democracy, this one has a rule of law, just a set of rules in which it is required to operate. That limits the power of those representatives. Like, if y'all decided on a rule that murder isn't okay, even if everybody really hates the dude, your representatives can't come around and be like, but come on, everybody really hates this dude. Can we please just murder this one guy? And the answer is no, because it says that in the rule book, and that's why you need the judiciary branch, because then the legal branch comes in and says, no, this is what the rule book says, I read it, that's my job, you can't murder the guy even though he's a total douchebag. Which you'd think people who wear grunt style t-shirts should, appreciate, because let's be real, nobody likes them. So now we have a rule book, we have a rule of law, that's the Constitution, which makes us constitutional, and then we're a representative democracy, but since there's lots of them, to be more specific, our specific type of representative democracy is a republic. And a republic is just a specific form of representative democracy where the people hold the power through voting, but that power is exercised through their representatives. So it's like motor vehicle versus pickup truck. Like, you can call your truck a motor vehicle and that would be correct, but a dump truck and a snowmobile and a sports car and a school bus could all also correctly be called motor vehicles. So democracy is, motor vehicle. It's the overarching term, and representative democracy would be like automobile. It's a more representative term, but still includes, station wagons and SUVs. And then constitutional republic is the pickup truck. It's a specific type of automobile and motor vehicle. Is that making sense? I hope so. I was gonna grab crayons, but I got really bad ADHD, forgot all about it. That's my bad. I'm sorry. And I'm sure because I forgot them, you're probably getting a little hangry by now, so I'll wrap it up. All I'm saying is, now that we've cleared this up, maybe we can shift your content to something that you're an expert at. Like how to get a peek up your spotter's gym shorts without getting caught while you bench press 500 pounds. If I needed advice on that, you are the first person I would come to. But civics and government, not really your wheelhouse, and that's not a bad thing. We all have our different talents, and that's what makes the world a rich and unique place. But if we're gonna speak as authorities on those things, we've got to stick to those topics, and you have wandered off that straight and very narrow path. That's not doing you or anybody else any favors. So let's just, ask Siri for a reroute and get you back on track and make the world a better place for everyone. Mostly with you never doing whatever it was you just did ever again.